Pleasant morning to everyone and welcome to the ICD Masterclass teaser webinar. On behalf of the Institute of Corporate Directors, we would like to thank you for raising the bar of good corporate governance with us. Before we start, we would like to remind of the following for us to have a fruitful session. Just in case you have any questions, you can type it in the Q&A section of this Zoom or chat box. Then the speakers will discuss them later in the Q&A part. To help keep background noise to a minimum, make sure you mute your microphone when you're not speaking. Lastly, should you encounter any technical issues during the session, you may contact any of our ICD staff by messaging them at the chat box. To officially start the session, it is my pleasure to introduce our first speaker for today. We'll discuss the first topic, managing finances in the digital age, fintech. Ms. 𝐈𝐂𝐃 𝐌𝐀𝐒𝐒 is a trustee and teaching fellow of the Institute of Corporate Directors, chairperson of ProLife UK Philippines, and is the president chief executive officer of Opal Portfolio Investments, Inc. She also sits on various boards, including publicly listed technology company, Surpass Inc. and Fintech Global Resources Inc., as well as a trustee of several organizations, Institute of Corporate Directors, Fintech Alliance Philippines, Fintech Philippines Association, and Vice Chairman of Governance Committee at the Management Association of the Philippines. She is a graduate of Business Accountancy at RMIT Australia and obtained a perfect score in accounting for bunkers and exams. Let us all welcome Ms. 𝐈𝐂𝐃 𝐌𝐀𝐒𝐒. Ms. 𝐈𝐂𝐃.
Thank you, Pauline. Thank you for the kind intro. Okay, I'm provided with 20 minutes just to give you a bird's eye view or a teaser of what you may expect in our masterclass. My challenge is to actually fit it in 20 minutes, but let me go through this. So let me start with a quick video first.
Tell me which Obama here is real.
To help families refinance their homes, to invest in things like high-tech manufacturing, clean energy, and the infrastructure that creates good new jobs.
Anyone? The answer is none of them. None of these is actually real. My inspiration for this work was a project meant to preserve our last chance for learning about Holocaust from the survivors. It allows you to have interactive conversations with a hologram of a real Holocaust survivor.
How did you survive the Holocaust?
How did I survive? I survived, I believe, because Providence watched over me.
These answers were pre-recorded in a studio, yet the effect is astounding. You feel so connected to his story and to him as a person. So I saw this and began to wonder, can we create a model like this for anyone? A model that looks, talks, and acts just like them. I eventually came up with a new solution that can build a model of a person using existing photos and videos of a person. First, we introduced a new technique that can reconstruct high-detail 3D face model from any image without ever 3D scanning the person.
I purposely cut that. It will make sense in a little while. So let me go through my topic, which is managing digital finance or managing finance in the digital age. You know, a lot of things are happening. You guys have heard of NFTs. You guys have heard of the wallets. You guys have heard of a whole different, the metaverse and whole different range. Won't have time to actually talk about that in details, but certainly I will be discussing a little bit of FinTech 101, appreciation on the digital finance, importance of a credit score, especially in business, and that the future is digital. Won't go through the cyber side of it, but I'll have one slide on this one. Okay, so I segregated the topics very few as far as the account security, but more on the digital finance and the options, the concepts. I want to start first with poll question. Can we have this up for, please? I want to have a feel on how our audience, where we are as far as our own personal finances are concerned. Poll question is, how are you? What's your state today? Are you indebted? Do you have more debts? You're trying to manage your debts? Or do you have no savings or at least, you know, manageable debt? Or you have some funds to invest? Kindly click.
A poll is already launched.
Oh, yeah, yes. Kindly click.
So we have 72 participants answer the poll.
All right, kindly share.
All right, I'm sharing to you the results.
Oh, excellent. There's a 6% indebted, no savings, but manageable. So about 23. A lot of us are we have money to invest. That's great. I need that statistics because I would gear more towards the money to invest as examples, because there's a lot of ways to actually manage your digital finance. Can I have the second question, please, which is, yes, thank you, which is, have you, or what fintech products have you actually used? Just one, which is the most that you're using, perhaps. You've done crypto, NFTs, online stock trading. Yeah, I think everyone's into digital wallets, GCash or Paymaya. Have you done online lending or not specified here?
All right, sharing to you the results.
Thank you. Can we share? Okay, digital wallet, 16%. Ooh, at least we have 16% on online. No one has actually done online lending. Thank you. Thank you for that stats. Now, since bulk of us here have a little bit more money to invest, so I'm going to shift towards that and shift towards the ones that you may not be aware of as well, as far as the managing digital finance is concerned. But let me just tell you, so a lot of people are still asking to date, ano ba yung fintech? What exactly is fintech? It's actually used to describe new technology that seeks to improve or automate the use of financial services. It's an emerging industry that uses technology to improve activities in finance. So people, when we're talking about fintech, people are saying, oh, crypto. Actually, that's not really the case. In fact, it's more of how you want your finance and, as the topic itself, managed. 27%, which is the highest, are actually into the lending part. And then you have the payments, you have the PesoNet InstaPay, you have the EMIs, electronic money issuers. Then you have the e-wallets, the GCash and Paymaya, which is actually smaller in terms of percentage than the lending, followed by some blockchain, crypto, and so on. So there's a whole range. In fact, as of December 2021, there are 216 fintech companies. And that includes the recent ones, which are the 6 digital banks. They are considered fintechs as well, among others. So there are a whole range. If they're not registered with the Securities Exchange Commission, watch out, because they could be fly-by-night operators. So just giving a breeze through on appreciation in the transformation in the last couple of years because of the COVID, there has been a major shift. In fact, the percentage here is, as far as the InstaPay and PesoNet, range from the low of 122% to a high of 500%. In the case of GCash, they were doing 900 million transactions in 2019 and now doing 3 trillion transactions. So just an example. Now, again, I'm breezing through this. I could talk about a lot of the products and services that are actually being offered by the fintech, but I want to hone down, as mentioned, no? So if you have 1 million pesos, where would you want to invest it? In the traditional market, you can put it in the bank. How much are you going to get? You're lucky to get 1%. You can put it on a stock market, and year to year, average is about 16%. But then again, the principal value can actually go down because it's fluctuating. You can invest it in gold. You can invest it in property. Rule of thumb is 5% per annum. You can invest it in business. Rule of thumb is double digit, minimum of 10%. Or you can invest it in capital markets, Bureau of Treasury, and so on. These are traditional methods, which means that you have to physically go in and may take a little bit more time. So let me show you just a quick run through what has happened to Philippine Stock Exchange in the last 10 years. And if you can put a graph on this in a straight line, it is slowly increasing while it's actually fluctuating on a day-to-day or even month-to-month basis. Let's look at gold. Gold is fluctuating as well. There's an inverse relationship between downturn in economy and gold. So when the economy is down, the alternative is normally gold. But let's look at another alternative, which is the Bitcoin. People are saying, well, you know, is that a scam? I'm not going to go through this. I would talk about this in a little bit more detail, including a little bit of the NFT, but not today, to manage our time as well. But if you look at the Bitcoin starting here in the last 5 years, up to where we're at, the peak was $68,000, coming from $1, mind you, to present day around about 27,000. So it is highly fluctuating. Some people will say, oh, do you recommend Bitcoin? I actually don't recommend anything, but it's something that you may want to look into, because a baby Bitcoin, lack of a better word, is actually Ethereum. And behind Ethereum is your blockchain, smart contract, metaverse, Web 3.0. Again, won't go into that. But what I'm saying is, as far as options concerned, these are your options, and they are available, click of your fingertip. Like, it's just a cell phone because it's online. So talked about crypto, you can invest, you can actually go through, in the Philippine setting, we don't have digital asset offering as of yet. There's a draft format in the Securities Exchange Commission, but it's something, what is it? You can invest in a company and you get a token. Again, we don't have that policy yet in the Philippines. What we have though, and has been recognized, is the non-fungible token, which is NFT, i.e. if you want to invest in a painting that's digital, that can perhaps increase in value. The other example that I want to show you as well is the P2P lending, person-to-person lending platform. And you're going to say, well, no, can we invest on that one? You can do either way. You can borrow or you can invest on a crowdfunding platform. I sit in the board of Seed Technologies, one of the biggest in Southeast Asia. And basically, it's a platform where it does all the algorithms. The borrowers would not be intimidated to be able to actually borrow. And actually, the ones who are lending are us, like the Tom, Dick, and Harry. But we take the risk. So we do the assessment, we check the assessment is done by the P2P lending platform. Again, won't go through that in details, but basically I'm telling you that there are options on that one. Lots of other options. Want to go through though, a bit of those ones with no savings or no debt, or you have a little bit of some money to invest and you want to expand it. And the way that I want to mention this is the typical good old-fashioned leverage financing. If you have 500,000 pesos, you can practically buy a 1.5 million property, borrow $1 million, and improve on that one. If you have 1.5, you technically can borrow for 3 properties, having the equity of 500,000 each. And that's actually the way to expand. And when I say leverage financing, it's because you may be able to get rental income from it, and therefore get that rental income to pay for the loan that you're borrowing. And who's actually doing this? And in fact, all the tycoons. These are the top 20 top 10 tycoons, top 20, but I think I only got here top 14. All of them with their own companies, they do leverage financing. They borrow because it's actually cheaper to borrow, and then have that invested and have that money grow and have that particular business pay the debt. It's nothing different from, I'm going to borrow, I have 5,000 pesos, I go through GCash, you can get loan in 5 minutes in GCash. 25,000, get a loan, credited to your GCash, buy a laptop, and therefore I can now have a 30,000 laptop with my 5,000 and 25,000, and the laptop can be your operating assets, and therefore I'd be able to teach you and I'd be able to earn. It's nothing different from that. It's still called leverage financing. So I know I'm talking fast because I do have a fair bit of slides, and I want to show you that there's a lot of things that you can do online. But when it comes to doing a leverage financing, you're going to say, well, you know what, I don't have a credit score, I don't have a record, and which is a bulk of the problem of the micro, small, medium enterprises that are, especially the startups. How do you build your credit score when typically the banks are looking at the 5 C's of credit, and one of them is collateral? In the fintech world, it's actually your own score and how your behavior. Let me go through this and show you another slide, video on this one.
Tell me which Obama.
They're constantly monitored by facial recognition cameras that are able to instantly put a face to a name. Now, the Chinese are also ranked, given a mark out of a possible 950 points. A score in the 700s is considered good. Around the 500 mark is not. For now, the number is a sort of bank credit rating, keeping track of everyone's spending. The state will go over every detail of a person's life with a fine-tooth comb. Their financial situation, spending habits, career, even behavior on social media. Criticizing the government online or displaying outward signs of wealth is a no-no. On the other hand, praising the party or giving blood increases your social credit.
Okay, I purposely stopped that. Because I just want to give you the gist of the credit scoring. If you have a digital wallet, and most of us have digital wallets, there's about 70% of us having digital wallets. If you keep putting money in there, in and out, it's already scoring you. In fact, if you use that to pay your utilities, you use that to pay your credit cards and that sort of thing, you're building your credit score already. And with that credit score, you're able to, with a good credit score, of course, it will be the other way around. It will be the lenders that will catch you. What else is happening in the digital world? And what if you can actually get a credit score, a good credit score? Typically, a farmer to date would actually walk 2 hours to encash a check. What is happening now? What we have now, we have pockets, we have digital wallets, we have investments, and you have online lending. There is at the moment, which is I'm part of the Open Finance with the Banco Central. I'm part of the committee, and we're already doing a pilot. We're starting to do a pilot on the Open Finance. A lot of people are still thinking, what exactly is Open Finance? Back to the farmer would be able to then share his information, his credit score, to the ecosystem. So the bank could pick that up, another fintech company can pick that up. So you have whole range of products and services. And this is a real financial inclusion. You can have loans, you can go through insurance through that. You have a tailor-made customer experience. And of course, the key levers is because of the innovation. It's a combination of artificial intelligence, using the transaction data to look into the customer behavior. It's looking at the identification. It's looking at even trying to, you can learn from it because of the gamification of finances, and it would even have sustainable finance, including ESG, which a lot of the other countries are actually picking where to invest, would be the ones that are having the ESG that's becoming popular. To optimize your banking processes, and if everything's actually done digitally, it would pick that up, starting with lessening the fraud because it's using double authentication. One of them is biometric, of course. Again, other financial services you can enter into. And we do believe that the open platform, which is you owning the data, is the way to go. Okay, so okay. Of course, I barely have, 2 minutes to finish. We got to be conscious of security, the fact that we are in the digital space. Not going to go through exactly how to, your firewall, you yourself as a human firewall. There are rule of thumbs on that one, the cybersecurity, of course, the password, the review of the privacy setting, and checking out with the regulators if they're registered business, and a whole lot of things. because when you are already in the digital space, the SEC has already warned a lot of investment scams. There's even cloning of publicly listed companies. And lastly, identity theft is becoming prevalent. In fact, according to statistics of McKinsey, $6 trillion are actually lost in terms of the fraud and problems with cybersecurity. So with that, I want to go back to my last video. Okay, sorry.
Tell me.
Sorry. Not that one.
As a researcher, I'm also working on countermeasure technology, and I'm part of an ongoing effort at AI Foundation, which uses a combination of machine learning and human moderators to detect fake images and videos, fighting against my own work. And one of the tools we plan to release is called Reality Defender, which is a web browser plugin that can flag potentially fake contents automatically right in the browser. Fake videos could do a lot of damage, even before anyone has a chance to verify. So it's very important that we make everyone aware of what's currently possible, so we can have the right assumption and be critical about what we see.
Yes. Oops. And with that, and this is why it's very important for us, governance advocates, the fact that there are a lot of possibilities, there's a lot of dangers as well. Governance does play a very important role because you just don't know who's actually out there and if I'm actually here. So we have to keep a watchful eye. And that finishes my session. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Ms. Ida. To hear more of our talk, you can catch the full session on July 29th. On to the next topic. Attorney Teodoro Alejandro Calo IV has counseled and thought on corporate governance, both locally and internationally. He also serves as chair of the Thought Leadership Committee and is the corporate secretary of ICD. Accredited by the Global Reporting Initiative as the first Filipino certified sustainability professional. He is both a certified sustainability practitioner and certified sustainability reporting azure of the Institute of Certified Sustainability Practitioners. Let us all welcome Attorney Teodoro Calo IV. Attorney.
Good morning, everyone. So glad to be here for our second season. And for this year, I have some good news and bad news. The good news is the topic that I have today, that I'm teasing for you for my episode in August, is actually been received with gradually exploding interest since 2019, particularly in our capital markets. That's the good news. The bad news, however, is that beginning last year and particularly this year, we have seen growing skepticism as to how some firms and many reputational agents in the capital markets are applying this concept of ESG. So let me begin my 20 minutes with a warning. A warning for all of you who, if you're new to this, that there are substantial risks ahead, particularly reputation risks. What you see here are just the titles of 4 articles in major financial broadsheets like the Asian Wall Street Journal, Financial Times, and Asia Times, just this year alone. March, April, May, and June. And all of them basically highlight that for many, there is growing skepticism as to how some firms and some other players who are into ESG, whether they're really applying this in the appropriate way. What's really happening? What's going on here? Well, my next 20 minutes and my episode today will be focused on 3 big questions. What, why, and how? What? What is sustainability? And second, what is ESG? So from there, if we have if we have are on the same page as to both, then we can ask us the next more important question. Why does comparing these concepts matter? Which is the point of my episode this year. And if we get the rationale behind my answer, then we can focus on what's most practical for you, your takeaway. How should corporate boards address both concepts? So, what, why, and how? First, let's go to the what. What is sustainability and what is ESG? For those of you who are not into this, sustainability has been defined since the 1980s. You have there the definition of the United Nations Brundtland Commission, and that has had several iterations. Right now, the iteration that we use very specifically is the definition promoted by the United Nations in terms of its sustainability development goals and targets, which is by 2030, if we are going to be able to claim that we are a truly sustainable global society, we should be able to demonstrate through very specific, several hundred targets, that we are progressing in 17 major development goals. You don't have to memorize those goals. There's just 3 buckets of them. And here I want to emphasize that contrary to what many in the green movement highlight, sustainability is not just about being green. It is, as you can highlight here, the middle pillar, it is a substantial part of sustainability. As a matter of fact, if we don't address it, we would probably be in major problems going forward, particularly by 2040, because it deals with having to live in a finite planet. Is that our biggest sustainability development challenge here for our country? I'm going to be a bit controversial here and say, actually, if you ask me, no. Because planetary resilience, at least in the fact that it impacts us, is really created by developed economies in the amount of CO2 and pollutants that they form, and the way they use resources. It's really a challenge for developed economies. For developing economies, we do need to focus on this first pillar relating to social equity. How do we end up? And this has been, our most important development challenge since we regained our independence in 1946. How do we try to come up with a more equitable society? And you're going to ask why. Why is that more important to us as a developing economy, the Philippines? Because if we don't have an equitable society, as we develop and become a developed economy, those who do not have more in life will end up using more of the public good, which creates an unsustainable cycle. Now, the difference between the SDGs and the MDGs that preceded them, the Millennium Development Goals, which was the set before the Sustainability Development Goals promoted by the United Nations. The difference between those two is that in this set, the United Nations has started to realize that sustainability is not just a topic for governments. It's also for civil society. It's also for businesses. That is why there is a third pillar, which relates to the promotion specifically of governance in these 3 areas, and partnerships, collaborations between these 3 sectors, between actors in these 3 sectors to address equity, social equity, and planetary resilience. Now, there are many ways of discussing this topic, and for purposes of awareness, orientation, and education, I don't argue the 3 Ps, jackpot, is great branding. But now that we are going towards a more mature concept or understanding of the concept, I take issue with whether we should continue to use 3 Ps for those who are really into sustainability for 2 reasons. 1, it's vague. What do you mean by people? What do you mean by planet? What do you mean by profit? And more importantly, I think, even if you have an understanding of that, secondly, it doesn't tell you what to prioritize. So many sustainability practitioners in recent years, this past decade, have been going to from 3Ps to 5Ps when it comes to applying sustainability in business. Why 5Ps? Because first you must start with making sure you have a viable business model. You don't have a viable business model, you have nothing, you are not able to create shared value. So it first relates to developing your talent and creating shareholder value, people and prosperity. When you have a viable business model, then you can prioritize social equity, planetary resilience, and partnerships to collaborate on these two areas. Where did I get these 3Ps? Remember this chart? That's all you need to recognize. That sustainability is all about, on one hand, recognizing and addressing the fact that we live in a finite planet. That's planetary resilience. And secondly, making sure that we move towards being a truly equitable society so that we are in the best position to live sustainability, making sure that future generations, we don't take from them. And we can only do that by collaborating together, emphasizing governance. That's sustainability. Let's go to ESG. In a nutshell, ESG is that one sentence that you see at the top of the screen. Firms, particularly for-profit ones, should be valued by environmental, social, and governance criteria in addition to financial metrics. Why that definition? Because ESG is a product. The concept is a product of our capital markets. And kudos to them. Kudos to reputational agents for pushing this there. Like institutional investors and investment analysts who demand that valuations, firm valuations, should not just be about projecting your cash flow. Okay? And therefore, since 2019, we've seen, as you can see from this chart from the Financial Times, substantial interest in making firms, businesses, whether particularly those in our listed markets, come up and say, okay, this is what we're doing in terms of environmental, social, and governance criteria. For this, therefore, we can see substantial dialogue in this space as to what topic is material to you in your particular firm. And secondly, what reporting framework or specific metrics can you use to demonstrate that you are progressing in these three types of criteria: environmental, social, and governance. For examples of this, we can easily point to the UN Principles for Responsible Investment, PRI. These are examples of material topics which would, of course, depend on what criteria, on what context that you're in. So let me highlight, ESG did not arise from the sustainability movement. Commendably, it arose by having more socially responsible institutional investors and other reputational agents push for environmental, social, governance criteria for firms with regards, particularly for their valuations, to be, judged by these criteria in addition to financial metrics. The thing is, many firms, when faced with these reputational agents in this space, only think of addressing the metrics that they're seeing coming out, which is wrong. It's wrong. Why? Because the ESG movement promoted by capital markets is really founded on the concept of sustainability. Remember this chart earlier? You can define the 17 SDGs and the hundreds of targets underlying them. You don't have to memorize any of those, because these 17 SDGs you can put into these three conceptual baskets. Well, lo and behold, social, environment, governance, it's the same thing. Effectively, ESG today, since it's popularization, if you believe the mass media, since 2019, ESG today is simply sustainability rebranded. The global reporting initiatives, whether you use a sustainability framework like that promoted by the Global Reporting Initiative here, or a proprietary ESG metrics by that, marketed by FTSE Russell, you're dealing with the same thing. But you're looking at the same concept from different perspectives. The foundational application of sustainability has always been business case. What's in it for business? When business gets to realize that they can create shareholder and shared value, they will better get into sustainability to create that value or minimize harm to specific stakeholders. Therefore, the outlook, the default approach has always been strategic interdependence. On the other hand, ESG, as promoted by our capital markets, the foundational application has been, how do we provide the appropriate metrics so that valuations of firms are not judged, focused on financial? How do we provide metrics for environmental, social, and governance factors? So here you can see it's the value rationale is still shareholder value. How do we demonstrate that that firm is identifying opportunities in addressing risks as to ESG so that we can better value it for investors? There's clearly a bias for operational focus. It's like being an elephant with one set of people, the sustainability practitioners on one side, and ESG advocates in the other, but you're looking at essentially the same elephant. That's the what. Let me now go to our second question. Why does comparing these concepts matter? Simply put, because we need to recognize that ESG without sustainability is effectively only a collection of categories. If you are going to get into this as a firm, because you're addressing it, because reputational agents are pushing you to, use metrics, there is a significant reputational risk for you. If you go into ESG without sustainability, you are probably creating a recipe for disaster for your firm. How do you go about it properly? You need to use sustainability to found your approach to addressing ESG metrics. First, by understanding your business case for sustainability, and particularly by avoiding the perspective of many ESG advocates who view this space only from or primarily from a market perspective. You have to go beyond operations and look at sustainability and ESG from a perspective of systematic interdependence. And when you understand your business case for being in this space, then you can adopt a real, credible sustainability strategy by applying that rationale in addressing the sustainability in your firm's particular context by creating shareholder and shared value or minimizing harm for stakeholder interests if that's the case. Moving beyond the market perspective, therefore, you end up making sure, once you understand that sustainability is a foundation of ESG, that you address all material topics. That it is not just, unlike how some ESG advocates push it, it is not just you pick and choose. You shouldn't. You should not simply report on topics that will reflect positively on your firm. You must report on all material topics related to sustainability and how you address them. That way, you better avoid reputation risks. The growing skepticism now from people who don't understand that this is not about the metrics. This is about how you can create opportunities or minimize harm. How? By starting with why, before what, and how. In other words, no firm can credibly do ESG without a sustainability strategy. Know your business case, build and execute a sustainability strategy that fits your business model, and then you can demonstrate transparency through sustainability reporting and ESG metrics. That's the appropriate approach. Sustainability as the foundation of ESG. Which leads me to my third and final question. So if we get this, how should corporate boards address both concepts? 4 ways: governance, strategy, execution, and accountability. This is a firm's ideal sustainability journey, and my episode will tackle this in detail. Let's just go through this in summary. First, governance. First thing that you need to do is to build a sustainability capable board by answering these 3 core questions. Can you competently address sustainability issues? Can you collaborate with top management to formulate and implement sustainability strategy? And third, tone at the top. Can you demonstrate commitment in making sure that everyone in your firm will eventually be accountable for the implementation of this strategy? Let's talk about that. The strategy that you have to set out will be based on your business case for sustainability, whether you see it as primarily a risk, whether you see it as a way to create opportunities, and more particularly by integrating it with your competitive strategy, or whether it's your business model. The spectrum will tell you how to gradually adopt it in your firm. What is a sustainability strategy? As highlighted by Professor Michael Porter of Harvard Business School, there are only 3 kinds of shared value initiatives: making more sustainable products and services, redefining your value chain to make it more sustainable, or creating shared value in the community by collaborating with stakeholders other than your shareholders. In short, your sustainability strategy, as compared to quote-unquote ESG strategy, which is selecting and applying a reporting framework or specific metrics, your sustainability strategy is a comprehensive portfolio of these 3 kinds of initiatives, addressing all the material topics of your firm's particular context. Then, if you have that strategy and you are credibly implementing it, that's when you can apply sustainability reporting framework and or ESG metrics, proprietary ESG metrics, or any of these open reporting frameworks. ESG metrics will help because it can provide more comprehensive materiality assessments, a specific application if context appropriate, and facilitates benchmarking. This is an example of MSCI's proprietary ESG metrics framework that it is promoting, or it is marketing. So it's only here when you have a strategy that you can credibly come out to stakeholders, and that way not only will you get leverage this for better increased reputation, but allow for greater strategy alignment because more stakeholders, internal and external, understand your sustainability journey. So bottom line, is rebranding sustainability as ESG appropriate? As what has happened now in the capital markets? My answer is, it depends. Clearly, no, if by ESG you relate merely to addressing or using metrics to supposedly demonstrate that you're a balanced firm, not just financially. In this regard, we must avoid the misconception pushed by certain ESG practitioners that sustainability is some generic term for business going green. It's not, as I've shown. Proponents of such in the capital markets do not have a sound nor deep grasp of the concept, as I have explained, comprehensively and practically defined today by UN SDGs. However, I would agree that rebranding sustainability as ESG is very much appropriate as long as you know that it should be founded on a credible, viable sustainability strategy based on your business case. Fearless forecast. If you don't get this as an ESG, if you're in ESG and you don't get this, great reputational chance, great chance that going forward in terms of reputational risk, you could be branded as a greenwasher. In a nutshell, the appropriate approach to addressing ESG, if you want to go into it, is to use sustainability as a foundation. Know your business case for systematically addressing both shareholder and shared value. create that viable and compelling sustainability strategy, implement it, and then use sustainability reporting and ESG metrics to message it out to your internal and external stakeholders. Questions, details, examples. I look forward to being with you for the 2 hours and in the public run of my episode on this August 26, 4 p.m. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you very much, Attorney Callow. So to reiterate, the full session of Attorney Callow is on August 26th. To discuss the third topic, he is a turnaround expert. He's a turnaround expert and a personal governance guru. He is currently the chairman of the board of Kilan Corporation and YLD Inc., and recently retired after 10 years as independent director in the Metrobank Group. He is deeply involved in the public governance and corporate governance reform advocacies as vice chairman of the Center for Excellence in Governance and of the Institute of Solidarity in Asia. Lastly, he is the former chairman of the Institute of Corporate Directors. Let us all welcome Mr. Rex Drilon. Sir?
Thank you, Paul. Do I now share my screen?
Yes, sir, you may share your screen. There, we can see Paul.
Wait. Okay. Good morning, everyone. It's nice to see you all again. There's more than 150 of governance warriors here. This topic assigned to me, and which I will discuss in full in September when we drill down later this year, is shared prosperity. And this is governance's response to inequality and exclusion. This is treated differently from IDA's assignment and also Teddy's assignment. I look at this as part of our response to a very deadly and more serious epidemic than COVID. And we'll explain that as we go along. I was already introduced, so I don't have to share this. For the next 25 minutes, we'll talk about the twin evils of inequality and exclusion, and the twin goals of the World Bank in addressing these evils, and also the ICD goal in our governance advocacy. And we'll share with you the business response to the twin evils from the US, the corporations, and also from the Philippine business groups. Then quickly go through a possible approach to operationalizing shared prosperity and relate shared prosperity to our dream Philippines. So the first evil globally is really the evil of inequality. And this is the phenomenon of an unequal and unjust distribution of resources and opportunities among members of a given society. So some disturbing statistics that you must have read all these years is that the 10 richest men in the world own more wealth than the bottom 40%, or more than 3.1 billion of humanity. And the richest 10% have 45% of global income. The top 1% have 22% of global income, while the bottom 50% earn 10% of global income. And here in the Philippines, the combined wealth of the 50 richest Filipinos surged in 2021 by 30% in spite of the pandemic. Their net worth rose even more in 2022. So what you can see in the next slide is that the Philippines really scores very poorly in terms of inequality. The Gini coefficient is a measure of inequality among countries. And we are at the bottom of the pile as far as the ASEAN 9 is concerned. We have the highest Gini coefficient. The higher the score, the higher the inequality. And but at least we are better than America as far as inequality is concerned. Apparently, America has a greater problem of inequality compared to the Philippines, but we're very, very poor in that sense. Poverty in ASEAN. Look at the numbers. Single digit among our neighbors, and we're the only double digit poverty percentage. 16.7% in 2019, but because of the pandemic, that has gone up to 23.7%. And as discussed earlier, inequality is one of the goals of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. And what are the targets in battling inequality? One is grow the income of the bottom 40% of the population at a rate higher than the national average. And second, to empower and promote social, economic, political inclusion of all, irrespective of age, gender, disability, race, ethnicity, origin, religion, etc. There are 8 more targets in terms of battling inequality, but that will be discussed in the drill down workshop in September. The second evil that is more serious than the pandemic is exclusion. And it's the process in which individuals are blocked or denied full access to various rights, opportunities, and resources. Exclusion is a very serious global problem. The reverse of that is inclusion. It's a practice of or policy of providing equal access to opportunities and resources for people who might otherwise be excluded, like the PWDs, those members in the other minority groups, the Ds and Es, and so on. So the World Bank has adopted the twin goals of promoting shared prosperity along with ending extreme poverty as its 2 major goals. And it means increasing the incomes and welfare of the bottom 40% of society wherever they are, be it in the poorest of nations or thriving middle income countries. That is why the Masterclass series this year included shared prosperity as one of the key topics that needed to be discussed with the fellows of ICD and with the other corporate governance practitioners. And in ICD, as you know, we flash this very often, that our end game in ICD is help companies create wealth, but share that wealth. That's why it's called prosperity rather than just profitability. And of course, when you share that wealth, when there is prosperity, poverty is eradicated. And so how does business respond to inequality and exclusion, the 2 twin evils in our society? America, with its 181 top CEOs in August 2019, came up with a document on the purpose of the corporation, redefining the purpose of the corporation from a stockholder-centric mindset to a stakeholder mindset. And they made commitments to their customers, their employees, their suppliers, the communities in which they work, and of course, to their shareholders. And they believe that each of their stakeholders is essential, and they commit to deliver value to all of them for the future of their companies, their communities, and America in general. Not to be outdone, the Philippine business groups, 29 business and professional associations in November 2020, came up with a convocation on shared prosperity. And there they signed a covenant on shared prosperity. And the 6 pillars of that covenant is really commitments to customers, commitments to employees, suppliers, community, and the shareholders, similar to the American version, but the Philippine business groups added environment as another key pillar for the covenant on shared prosperity. And this is explained in detail what the commitments are of the business groups, and there's 6 of those. I will not cover this, but it's important for you guys to see that your business associations have committed to do this. Okay. So you have 6 stakeholders. And even our Pope, Pope Francis, 3 years ago, came up with an encyclical called Laudato Si. And essentially his message is that never have we so hurt and mistreated our common home as we have in the last 200 years, and that we must hear both the cry of the earth and the cry of the poor. So these are nice concepts, problem defined, global problem of inequity and exclusion. But how do we address that? Yes, shared prosperity. The commitments sound nice, but how do we operationalize shared prosperity? Where does the rubber meet the road? So the 6 stakeholders, and we studied all of the facets of these stakeholders, and we look at the World Economic Forum's 45 metrics on shared prosperity, and we thought that there's too many. Not too many Filipino companies can probably have the interest in monitoring 45 matrices. So we tried to reduce that, and we came up with only 19 matrices, still formidable, but at least digestible. And we added 3 metrics, not so much for the stakeholders, but for the board of directors. So let me just go quickly on this. On employees, how do you operationalize commitment of the corporation to its employees? We suggest 4 metrics: percentage of training cost to total people cost, existence of a formal performance evaluation system, calibrating the employee satisfaction index, compensation levels using certain standards, whether it's industry average or whether it's a ratio of the CEO salary compensation to the average worker, or a living wage compared to the minimum wage ratio, and so on. And other HR metrics. Policies, for example, on non-discriminatory hiring, fair labor practices, sexual harassment, whistleblowing, conflict of interest. So that's commitment, operationalizing commitment to employees. What about customers? 3 criteria, 3 metrics. 1, customer satisfaction index. You must measure level of customer satisfaction, your customer complaint resolution, turnaround time, and percentage of your R&D to total cost, which is a measure of your product development initiatives to make sure that you satisfy your customers. 3rd, suppliers. How do you measure your commitment to your supplier? 1, develop a supplier satisfaction index. And 2nd, make your suppliers or require them to sign the integrity pledge as promoted by the Integrity Initiative, which is right now composed of about 3,000 corporate signatories. 4th, community. How do you measure, or what measures do you want to measure your faithfulness in your commitment to your community? Well, percentage of your net income budgeted for CSR addressing specifically poverty and hunger. I'm sure there are many other CSR projects, laudable ones, but we want to focus, our companies want to focus on poverty and hunger. Also business resiliency and taxes paid. What about the environment? There are 4 basic measures: greenhouse gas emission or carbon footprint, energy conservation, water adequacy and security, and waste management practices. And finally, your stockholders. Maybe just a couple: your dividend rate and your percentage compliance with regulatory requirements. But all of this will not happen if this does not get the support of the board. And there are 3 areas where we think the board should have a major presence. 1 is to make sure that the company is covered by a honest to goodness strategy, a roadmap to shared prosperity, and it starts with the government's charter of vision, mission, and values. 2nd is the board requiring management to sign the covenant for shared prosperity. And 3rd, board itself must meet the criteria for diversity and stakeholder centricity. So why do you want to do this? Because we believe in ICD that shared prosperity becomes even more meaningful if you relate it to our dream Philippines, the Philippines that we have always dreamed about. And fortunately, in the last 3 or 4 months, we gathered about 100 volunteers from the very young to the very old, all business, civil society, government, military, most sectors of society. And it took us 4 months to create a framework, a roadmap for the Philippines. And we did this because we felt that we need to transform our country. And so the core objective of the project Dream Philippines is the transformation of the Philippines and the comprehensive development of the Filipino by the Filipino and for the Filipino. And so we produced a 50-page document defining our core values as a country. And we thank 𝐈𝐂𝐃 for that, for reminding us that these core values are already embedded in the laws of the land, which is maka-Diyos, maka-bayan, maka-tao, maka-kalikasan, in Republic Act 84-19. So aside from the values, stating the mission of our country, the vision for the Philippines, and we look at how you build a nation, and we look at 8 facets of nation building. And then for each facet, we developed 3 to 5 objectives and came up with 28 strategic objectives. And just to make sure, and this is the summary, the 1-page summary of the 50-page document, which includes the core objective of Dream Philippines, the core values of the Filipino, the mission statement, which is our preamble of our Constitution, the vision statement in 4 milestones, 2008, 2034, 2040, 2046, the 8 facets of national development, and the 28 perspectives, strategic objectives. And we match this against the 17 SDGs of explained earlier by 𝐸𝐿, and all of these objectives, 1 or 2 or 3 of these objectives would hit one of the 17 SDGs. So on September 16, I believe, we'll meet again to drill down on this topic of shared prosperity and shared prosperity and Dream Philippines. And I will meet you all on September 16, 4 to 6 p.m. and we'll discuss these concepts more deeply, and we'll drill down deeper into shared prosperity, what we can do in our corporations, and what we can do for our country. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sir Rex. Again, his full session is on September 16th. Now, to discuss the next topic. She is currently the president of 𝐈𝐂𝐃 Consulting Inc. She is active in advocating corporate governance and capital market development, gender and development, and women's economic empowerment. The vice chairperson, president, supervising trustee of the Diversity and Inclusion Committee of the ICD, founding chairperson, president of the Philippine Business Coalition for Women Empowerment, and co-chair of Male Champions of Change Philippines. Let us all welcome Ms. Maria Aurora Boots D. Giotina Garcia.
Thank you and good morning to everyone. Let me start this session or this teaser with a quick icebreaker. We will be flashing some pictures on the screen and ask you what each one represents: diversity, inclusion, or both. And please do so in your chat box. Okay, so the first picture slide 3. What do you think this represents? Then maybe we can move on to slide 4 or the next slide. On to the next slide again. And finally, the last picture. So thank you to those who responded. So let's talk about a little bit more about this, what this pictures represent, and ask this question. Does being diverse necessarily mean being inclusive? Have you asked or wondered why these principles must be combined to be more powerful? What do these concepts mean for you and for the organization that you represent? In recent years, many organizations have made great efforts to promote diversity and inclusion, or D&I for short. And the discourse has shifted significantly from a focus on gender equality towards D&I, more generally, the expanded scope from addressing women as one group to recognizing the heterogeneity of experiences in the workplace was necessary, as this allowed organizations to address further the inequalities that people experience according to their intersecting identities. But the definition of diversity and inclusion remains to be a topic of debate. The next slide shows a picture of an iceberg. Let's refer to this as diversity more than meets the eye. This just shows that diversity extends beyond traditional considerations such as those based on ability, age, culture, race, and ethnicity, gender identity, expression, socioeconomic background. Other dimensions of diversity may be sometimes something inherent, such as educational background, training, sector experience, and even personality. So diversity is about representation or the makeup of an entity. Diversity allows for the exploration of their differences in a safe, positive, and nurturing environment. For example, let's talk about Southeast Asia. It's one of the most diverse places in the world, comprising a rich mosaic of people, ethnic groups, languages, and beliefs. However, make no mistake, an environment where many different genders, races, nationalities, and identities are present does not necessarily make it inclusive. So inclusion is about how well the contribution and presence and perspectives of different groups of people are valued and integrated into an environment. It is a culture that gives everyone a seat at the table. Inclusive cultures make people feel respected and valued for who they are as an individual or a group. Inclusion in the workplace is one of the most important tools for employee retention. It is when employees feel that their ideas, presence, and contributions are truly valued or taken seriously by the organization. It suggests a feeling of belonging or being part of the organization. Some organizations are highly focused on diversity policies, which is a great starting point, but implementing this without inclusion is a huge miss. In other words, diversity and inclusion go hand in hand. For example, openness to diversity widens access to the best talent, while inclusion promotes the engagement of talent effectively. Or another example, we cannot just talk only about women championing gender inequality, as we all, from all genders, need to work together to be successful. To put it simply, as one author noted, diversity is a mix, and inclusion is getting the mix to work well together. Beyond business and economic performance, D&I within workplaces is simply the correct and smart thing to do, as it leads to innovation, creativity, productivity, reputation, and engagement, and results. So recognizing D&I as an essential long-term approach is not only a business imperative, but also a crucial step to national development. And at the height of the pandemic, McKinsey reported that diverse companies have a significantly greater advantage, being effective, adaptive, and productive. Allow me to share ICD's references for our Women on Board study on the importance of gender diversity in the boardroom. Deloitte reports that there is a progress towards increasing the number of women on corporate boards, albeit at a slow pace. Meanwhile, IFC said that there is a compelling evidence that in order for board gender diversity to have a significant impact on company performance and behavior, a critical mass of women must occupy business leadership position. And in the Philippines, we still have a long way to go, as the percentage of boardroom representation by women is only at 17% of publicly listed companies. So the underrepresentation also means that the biggest benefits of broad board diversity are yet to be seen. And as the push for gender diversity continues, more benefits of having women on boards will be seen, and soon having women on boards will become the norm rather than the exception. Former ICD CEO and trustee and incoming Trade Secretary Fred Pascual emphasized that board diversity matters, but concentrating on only one form of diversity is not enough. And I quote, "The board is the highest decision-making body of a company. You want to be able to tap the wealth of experience of your directors, your directors have amassed over the years to operate a firm on that level." So what then is holding us back? Let me pose this additional question to you. What is holding us back? Why are some workplaces inclusive or diverse, diverse enough? Why aren't leaders more inclusive? In 2020, Boston Consulting Group, in a report entitled "The Diversity Dividend," said that most corporate leaders are grappling with the challenge of defining or deriving a strategic advantage for a diverse and inclusive workforce. While leaders know that D&I will allow companies to tap into a rich pool of talent, some are not necessarily aware of the most effective inclusion program or unsure of the return of investment on such programs. And the most common obstacle is the misunderstanding of what D&I is. As I said earlier, without a culture of inclusion, diversity is difficult to sustain, and common understanding of both is crucial. So D&I could be likened to the practice of assimilating a melting pot of differences and honoring such differences in a mosaic. While we are aware that D&I provides a basis for creativity, innovation, and economic success, there is often a lack of effective action, which is easier said than done, often brought about by, among others, our own unconscious biases. And let's cite examples of biases. Let's talk about confirmation bias, the tendency to search for, favor, and recall information in a way that confirms or supports one's own prior beliefs or values, as in seeking opinions only of those who will say yes to what you think. Groupthink, the desire for harmony and conformity to the group that may result in an irrational or dysfunctional decision-making outcome, like not entertaining new ideas or alternatives so as not to rock the boat. Affinity bias, tendency to appreciate people that are like ourselves in terms of appearance, maybe beliefs and backgrounds, maybe recruiting candidates only from our alumni school or our community. On the other hand, some companies who have embarked on their D&I journey could be faced with obstacles such as having a level of discomfort, as many people aren't clear about what to say or do in a D&I space, which can be as fearful and wrong. Perhaps the details and depth of strategic thinking could be thin, as many D&I initiatives are sometimes developed to comply with regulations or corporate governance. And sometimes the D&I initiatives focus only on HR, which is rather limiting. And furthermore, organizational misconceptions exist, and often D&I is siloed off as an adjunct unit. Some companies pursue D&I to gain recognition instead of focusing on earning respect from their employees, customers, and suppliers. Focusing solely on the ROI of D&I becomes more about compliance rather than building a culture that leverages the innovation of a diverse and inclusive workforce. So while it's true that the ROI's primary function is evaluation of impact, ROI also offers a tangible value to D&I activities such as employee skills and experience, brand reputation, workforce, culture, customer service, and many more. So significant strides have been made, and let me now share with you some notable leaders and organizations that walk the talk when it comes to D&I. The US Stock Exchange, NASDAQ, filed a proposal to include gender and ethnicity requirements for its listed companies, which the US Securities and Exchange Commission approved in 2020, setting out minimum targets for boards, including at least one female director and at least one director who self-identifies as a racial minority or as LBGT. And companies who do not meet the requirements would have to publicly explain why over 2020 explain why, and over 2020 to 5 to 20 and succeeding years, the quota will increase to at least 2 diverse directors, 1 from each diversity group. Similarly, BlackRock, the world's largest asset manager, is pushing for companies to aim for a board that is 30% diverse, including at least 2 women and at least 1 who identifies as member of an underrepresented group, which again could be an ethnic minority or someone who identifies as LGBTQ. Let's go local and look at our own organization, ICD. We also walk the talk, and in 2021, we achieved a gender equal board, one of the few, if not among the first, among the major business organizations. And aside from gender parity, the ICD board comprised trustees with varied industry experiences in terms of age diversity. And the trustees are equally distributed in several age ranges. With this profile, you can imagine the level of discussion that takes place in our board meetings, and certainly the opinions of all board members are given their due course by the chair. And in the recent ICD election, we think will enhance the other dimensions of diversity in your board, as the new trustees who are serving for the first time are relatively younger, are tech savvy with strong IT backgrounds. Indeed, D&I initiative should be led from the top and must begin in the boardroom. Another example is Lamoyan Corporation, which produces the Happy Toothpaste brand, which is a program of employing hearing-impaired individuals in their company. Cecilio Pedro, president and CEO of Lamoyan Corporation, implemented the Equal Employment Program with the purpose of providing equal opportunities to people with disabilities. And the program includes free housing for more than 30 deaf-mute staff, while at the same time requiring the companies to learn sign language as a means of communicating with the staff. Admittedly, having employees with special needs has been a challenge due to the additional consideration needed for them. For example, hearing-impaired employees were presumed to be skilled in manual labor, but had difficulty filling positions where mathematical skills were needed. So thus, they could only be positioned in the production lines where tasks are repetitive. But despite the cost and adjustments, Lamoyan leadership felt that there was a return on investment. The company values are deeply rooted in the belief that corporations should not only focus on making profits, but should also contribute to the environment and community. And since then, Lamoyan was lauded for having the most outstanding program for equal employment opportunity by providing opportunities to the country's hearing-impaired community members. Talk about board diversity. The Ayala Group has set a board diversity policy and has committed to continue increasing the number of women from entry level to senior leadership positions. In an event which we organized, the Male Champions of Change Philippines, Fernando Zubelda Ayala, said that the group is aligning its diversity programs with the in accordance with global standards, while working with peers to make diversity and inclusion as the norm in Philippine business. And to share with you, AC Energy, or ASEN, the listed energy platform of the Ayala Group, has 45% women, 5 out of 11 in the board of directors, and I happen to be one of the 5 women. Another Ayala company, Globe Telecom, is the first Filipino company to recognize the qualified dependence of same-sex legal couples in the employee base. The new company policy took place in January 2020, covering regular employees who contracted marriage with their same-sex partners in countries where same-sex union is legal. So Globe extends similar benefits to dependents of its employees, which come from the LGBTQIA community. They are entitled to company-initiated benefits such as inpatient and outpatient medical coverage, leave credits, group life and accidental death insurance, bereavement assistance, and retirement and death benefits. A purpose-led organization, Globe has been at the forefront of giving empowerment and equal opportunities to all its employees. And this resonates within the company's culture, enabling it to be one of the best global high-performing companies for many years. And finally, Telstra Corporation, both in Australia and the Philippines. Its former CEO and managing partner said that diversity and inclusion are key enablers to retaining the best talent. It is a cumulative result of many intentional actions. And Telstra's Philippine office extends DAI initiatives to its workforce, such as health coverage for dependents of all types of partnerships, as well as a recruitment process that ensures the equal distribution of people of all genders. And Ben Romualdez, country manager of Telstra Philippines, said that their employee engagement scores increased over the pandemic. People want to work for Telstra. They are engaged, he added. So given the proven benefits of D&I initiatives, such as increased innovation and performance and the positive effect of reputation and talent retention, businesses need to have D&I top of mind, not only in a crisis, but as a long-term strategy. And you may ask where to start. Where do I start? Here are some practical tips that you may consider to start your D&I journey. Figure out your why and identify what you want to achieve. A deeper examination of motives and goals is required, and you need to know why D&I initiatives are critical for your business. Use company data to measure, monitor, and evaluate and improve policies and practices of D&I. In my capacity as co-chairperson of the Philippine Business Coalition for Women Empowerment, we work with large and influential companies on a diagnostic and assessment process that identifies and sets benchmarks to promote D&I, in particular workplace gender equality. And through this process, we assist companies in developing strategies to address and improve their standing. Dive down to the deep team level. Each industry needs to look at the diversity of teams, not just the company as a whole. What matters is that each team is diverse and that underrepresented groups are distributed across the company. The team level is where you're really going to feel the impact of a D&I initiative. A diversity of perspectives makes better decisions to arrive at better outcomes. And more importantly, to make this happen, as many of us earlier have also said, lead change from the top. Make it clear to the employees, investors, shareholders, and consumers that D&I is a key principle of good corporate governance. There's more to be learned about how to become an inclusive leader, diverse and inclusive leader, and harness the power of diverse teams. But one thing is clear. Leaders who consciously practice inclusive leadership and actively develop their capability will see the results in the superior performance of their diverse team. Diversity without inclusion is a story of missed opportunities, of employees so used to being overlooked that they no longer share ideas and insights. But diversity with inclusion provides potent mix of talent retention and engagement. In addition to being the right thing to do, right thing to strive for, having a diverse workforce helps companies acquire and retain the best talent, build employee engagement, increase innovation, improve business performance. So let me end by sharing this quote. Diversity is being invited to the party. Inclusion is being asked to dance. So with that, I'd like to thank you and encourage you, if you wish to learn more about this relevant topic, to join us in the courses or in the course that will be offered in the coming months. Thank you for your attention and good morning again to all.
Thank you very much, Ms. Boots. Again, her full session is on October 28th. Our second to the last speaker, but not definitely the least, has numerous professional experiences as an independent consultant, advisor, director, and lecturer in various prominent companies in the United States of America and the Philippines. He specialized in business strategy and innovation at Stanford Graduate School of Business and completed an additional postgraduate program in disruptive strategy and innovation at Harvard Business School. Let us all welcome Mr. 𝐈𝐂𝐃. Sir?
Thank you very much for the wonderful introduction, Pauline. Let me share my screen, okay?
All right, sir.
Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes, sir, but not in a full.
Okay. Okay, can you see it in
Yes, sir.
presentation mode? Okay,
Yes.
good. So my topic is titled Disruptive Strategy, Theories and Frameworks, okay? And I've been introduced, so I'm gonna skip this, I'm gonna skip this. So this is a picture of the late President George Bush Sr. that he sent to me, and quote to Mr. 𝐈𝐂𝐃, thank you for all you've done to help us build a more promising future for America. Dated June 8, 1992. So it's been 30 years that I've kept this to inspire me to innovate, improve every day, just like a product or service, because our topic is innovation, disruptive strategies, okay? So this is a picture of me right next to a plaque on the wall of San Francisco International Airport. I served as a board member of the joint venture entity that helped build this massive structure. Okay. This is a picture of me and my Stanford graduate students. I've been mentoring at Stanford since 2015. Some of the student projects have actually become real businesses. So my objective for today's session is to give you a taste of what I will be discussing in November and pick your interest to hopefully get you to attend the full course, okay? So by participating in this course, you will learn the following. Number one, an understanding of disruption theories and innovation concepts, understanding of frameworks that you can use to assess new opportunities and potential threats, and number three, understanding of techniques that you can use to develop your strategy to address disruption and innovation. So this is the outline that I'll follow in November, okay? So the lecture is based on the teachings of Professor Clayton Christensen, the Harvard Business School, considered the father of disruptive innovation. So he coined the term disruptive innovation. I will have a guest entrepreneur, innovator, Philippine-based. He's the founder and chairman of a venture capital firm and multiple technology companies, both in the Philippines and overseas. The board has a responsibility to guide management to ensure not only the sustainability of the business, but to grow the business as well. Okay. Then I will move on to talk about aligning with innovation and disruption. I will cover the three main types of innovation: sustaining innovation, low-end disruptive innovation, and new market disruptive innovation. And I will talk about a concept called customer jobs to be done and why it's important. Okay. I will also walk you through organizing for innovation. There's certain ways to organize for an innovation project, how and why, managing a disruptive scope. If your business is successful, then you currently have a good strategy, temporarily, not permanent. Okay. Then I will talk about managing the strategy development process. I will present two strategy development processes that are executed simultaneously, but they're fundamentally different. Okay, deliberate strategy and emergent strategy process. So this is a picture of the San Francisco International Airport. Like I said earlier, I served as a board member of the entity that helped build this massive structure. Okay, so why am I showing this building? The reason is that there's a lot of innovation and technologies that went into this building. It is one of the largest structures in the world that is on base isolation. And I'll talk about base isolation. It has 87,000 square meters in floor area, the equivalent of 18 football fields, 317 base isolators in the foundation system. So a base isolation system is a system comprising of rubber and steel plates in the foundation of the structure that allows the building to move and goes back in its place in the event of an earthquake. So this technology minimizes damage to the structure in the event of an earthquake. Okay. The other innovations that are in this building are energy management systems, security systems, baggage handling systems, IoT, Internet of Things, that type of thing. All right. So I'm going to talk about aligning with disruption and innovation. So why do successful companies fail? A lot of successful companies run by great, smart leaders fail because of this phenomenon called innovation, disruptive innovation, okay, or disruption. consider, for example, the Standard & Poor's 500, S&P 500 stock market index in the United States. So the first group of companies, that see on the screen, are mostly technology companies. Okay, Google, Amazon.com, Salesforce.com, Netflix. There's some brick and mortar companies. One is Ralph Lauren. But the reason that they are there is they have introduced technologies and innovations into their operations, that kept their operations competitive. Okay, the second group, companies that have been forced to exit the index, include PeopleSoft, Radio Shack. Sears is a centuries-old business in the United States. They were the pioneer in catalog-based marketing of products. Back in the 1800s, they had their own building in Chicago, the world's tallest building when it opened in 1974, but they failed. I mean, they filed for bankruptcy last year. Why? Because they failed to respond to disruptors in the retail industry. Disruptors like Amazon that now sells everything, right? So that's why Sears failed and filed for bankruptcy. So this is the first type of innovation, sustaining innovation. So in November, I'm going to talk about the different characteristics, and I'll go over case studies. This is the second type of disruptive innovation, low-end disruptive innovation. And again, I'm going to go over the different characteristics. And this is the third type, new market disruptive innovation. I'm going to walk you through the different characteristics, how they are deployed. I'm going to show you and work with you on a case study in the computer industry. We're going to talk about the differences between, the three types of innovation shown in this chart. Comparison, between the three types. I'm going to walk you through a concept called customer jobs to be done. A job is a problem that a person is trying to solve, right? So a customer just don't buy a product. They quote unquote hire them to get a job done, right? So I'll give you an illustration. This is Julius Caesar. He had a job to be done, to get done, but and the job to be done is to get from point A to point B as fast as possible. And in his era, the only thing he could hire is a horse-drawn chariot, right? Benjamin Franklin had a job to be done, and in his time he had a train that he could hire to get his job done get him from point A to point B. Right? Franklin Roosevelt had a job to be done, and in his time he could hire an airplane to get him from point A to point B. Right? And today, the president of the United States could hire a DHL to get, his job done. Get his paperwork from point A to point B, right? So the job really has not changed, right? But the technologies that you can use or you can hire to get the job done has dramatically changed, correct? So if you frame your business to deliver your product or service well and better and better and better over time, you'll have a lot of opportunities to use technologies to deliver your product, right? I'll also talk about the two dimensions of customer jobs to be done, namely functional and emotional. The picture shows a toothbrush and toothpaste. So, you know, the functional is that the toothbrush and toothpaste, they have a function to be achieved, right? Which is for personal hygiene. The second dimension is emotional, you know. So a name brand, like for example, a watch, for example, or a pair of sunglasses, make you feel that you are in, you know, some class in society, right? You know, if you're wearing a Rolex, for example, you know, you feel like you're a certain class in society. So that's emotional, social dimension of a job to be done. We'll also talk about ideas for discovering jobs to be done when we meet in November. Organizing for innovation. There are certain types of organization that are more appropriate when you have an innovation project. It's you know, it's really difficult to launch an innovation project inside a large organization. So, you know, we'll talk about that. You know, there have been cases where innovations fail because you know, the wrong resources and profit formula were used. Like, you know, when you're launching an innovation and you have a large overhead, you know, it's difficult, right? Managing a disruptive scope, you know, if you're currently successful today, if your business is successful today, then you have a good strategy temporarily, but not permanent, right? Companies must be able to skate to where you can derive substantial or attractive profits tomorrow or later on. Yeah, where you make money today might not be where you'll make money tomorrow, you know, in the future, right? And then I will walk you through the you know, two strategy development processes, deliberate strategy and emergent strategy process, and you know, drill down on these two strategy development processes. So join us in November, you know, for more comprehensive discussions and topics and Q&A. Thank you. Good morning again.
Thank you very much, Sir Armand. Again, his full session is scheduled on November 25th. Now, our last speaker for today is currently an independent director and chairman of the Board of Directors Audit Committee of Life Savings Bank. He is a professor of strategy management at the Ateneo Graduate School of Business and a teaching fellow of the Institute of Corporate Directors. He has taught various courses to corporate directors throughout the country in strategy, policy, governance, and risk management. Lastly, he sits as the Chief Executive Officer of the Institute of Corporate Directors. Let us all welcome Dr. Carlos Jose Charlie P. Gatmaycan.
Thank you very much, Pao. I hope you can hear me. My audio okay?
Yes, sir. Loud and clear.
Yeah, before I share my screen, I'd like to thank everyone for participating today, not just in the Zoom, but also in Facebook. It's a great, I'm just honored to be part of this masterclass. It's the second series, and I made sure that ICD, in the form of management, will be part of this in the second masterclass session. Aside from, before welcoming everyone, I'd like to thank our previous speakers. So, of course, Ida Chongson for digital technology, Attorney Ted Calao regarding ESG, Rex Delon for shared prosperity, Boots Geotina Garcia for diversity, and of course, just recently from San Francisco, Armand 𝐂𝐃 𝐌𝐀𝐒𝐒 for disruptive innovation. So again, welcome everyone. And to all those non-members, I invite you to join ICD. Let this be an opportunity to invite you in joining us in making us more diverse, among other things, not just in numbers, but also in all sorts of diversity, from gender to skill set to age and so on and so forth. So allow me to share my screen with you. Okay, I guess that would work. So what is ESG and strategy? The topic of my discussion today will focus on ESG and strategy. ESG is a very, very, very key topic. Let me begin by saying that, and that's why we dedicated 2 sessions for this masterclass series, and we'd like to complement what Attorney Calao will be presenting in the next few months. Having said that, and allow me to make this a very casual presentation or a teasers for us to be able to invite you to join us in December, which is the last session as well. Of course, the first one will be in July. So we see ESG, what is it, a marketing tool? Is it a barometer for investors, funds all over the world, non-financial initiatives such as a CSR program? How about part of a sustainability strategy, as mentioned by Teddy earlier? Or maybe ESG can be a strategy in itself. It's probably all of the above, right? It could very well be all of the above. If I may share the vagueness of it, there's so many different types of reporting. We hear the MSCI, we know the UN sustainability, we hear of SASB, the sustainability accounting standards. And so we're sort of trapped as to where we stand right now in something that's getting to be very, very significant surrounding not just PLCs, but any corporation, and of course in ICD. It attracts the boards regarding these corporate governance issues, which we focus on, but it's a very dynamic topic which affects everyone. And so we are here to sort of see how it will affect us all. In terms of reporting, if I may quote on the PwC Price Waterhouse Cooper overview regarding reporting standard, it's implied. They say that as a business world continues to address wide-ranging ESG issues, there's a strong focus on developing a globally consistent, comparable, and trusted sustainability reporting standard. Hence implying, as politely as possible, that this is still a vague, big blue sea, so to speak. You know, investors and broader stakeholders are increasingly demanding more strategic and holistic information about long-term value creation and a company's wider impact on society, and that it goes hand in hand. And of course, that they have highlighted the need for sustainability information. And we're talking about non-financial type of information and the reportage it comes along with. And so, if I may move on to the next slide. Oh, sorry, get back. And so as we see ESG and this version, it really meets into this central point. And And mind you, as mentioned by Ted earlier, it's not just environment, social, and governance, but it basically covers the key issues that we have to put into boards today, at least from the corporate governance standards, which I represent in ICD. Let's get back into it. So interest of the part of investors and other corporate stakeholders in ESG matters have indeed surged in recent years. We talk about financial figures from 35 trillion to 70 trillion in ESG related investments, and growing faster than many capital markets at 15%, shows the growing need, not just in terms of numbers, but in terms of attention, all the way from reporting to strategies in itself. The current economic, public health, social injustices, these have come about so regularly to the point that we know that what's constant is change. And even today, we see the pandemic is really a word that we've been hearing for the last 2 years. But post-pandemic, is there really going to be a new normal when we know that the very next day something new may happen? Well, in the case of, well, we can probably look at this as this pandemic is very profound. It's really changed our lives in all ways, right? But getting back, let's get back to the slide. The social criteria, of course, refers to how environmental talks about the usual, the climate change, deforestation, carbon footprints, the higher temperature, biodiversity, and so on, which really has been the biggest component of ESG over the last years, at least in attention. But what about the social issues? What about the board diversity, as mentioned by Boots earlier, the importance of not just the usual gender, but choice, age, skill set, especially with this technology-driven world. Ida, our treasurer, Ida, mentioned earlier, it's really a whole new topic in itself about digital technology, all the way to Armand Gacacio's discussion on disruptive technologies. And all of these have really affected and shown the need for diversity, not just in boards, but from top to bottom. So whether it be skill set, and all of these has affected us. Governance then that's where ICD comes in probably most, shall we say, I'm not sure in terms of, that's our expertise, so to speak. But it really covers everything. We realize that it's more of just conformance, but it's performance, and it's not just about setting the proper number of independent directors and boards, or the proper committees and the charters of such committees, and making sure that it is governed and conforming. But the challenge really is now performing, and realizing that performing now is much different when ICD started in the turn of the century. Had we not really tried our best to change, and believe me, we still have a long way to go, then this agile, this adaptive nature to these, and the ability to change is a key part of good governance these days. And what's really scary, if I may say, or what's really what we are unsure of are the unknowns, which the next decades or so, as we develop, there's always something new that always amazes us in terms of context. And so in our seminar, in our webinar, this masterclass, we'll also be talking about the evolution of ESG. In the turn of the century, in terms of the last century, of course, we all know about the production age, the industrial age, where production equals profitability, hence equals earnings, hence equals market value. A very straightforward view of corporate life, right? But in came corporate governance, of course. ESG did not come from nowhere. We try to trace it back, and maybe some seriousness into it came all the way to the regulatory bodies, hence directing the direction on the importance of these non-financial initiatives as part of any corporation should be considered, no? So in the 80s, environmental, health, and safety standards of pollution came about. Of course, labor issues, labor wages, and all of these things had importance. But you can see as it transitions in the 1990s to sustainability, where we focus on, on reducing environmental impacts beyond the legal requirements. So it's starting to evolve into something that you don't need to be regulated into in doing the right thing, and be aware that we are part, any business entity is part of this whole ecosystem, and that we should be aware and have the shared responsibility. And as Rex Drilon mentioned, that's what we espouse in ICD. And we move forward to corporate social responsibility, philanthropy, employee volunteerism used to align social issues. But something missing here was that these all seem to be expenses or investments that may not necessarily be of interest to corporate boards, right? Our purpose, the purpose of the private sector anyway, is to give value to its shareholders. But ultimately, what ESG has really come about is to give a new perspective as to, is it really important to have all these CSR, all these sustainability issues, all these environmental, social governance initiatives, of course, led by the boards, by corporate boards, into the whole picture? And it seems as though studies do show that there's a direct correlation. If we look at rankings and ratings, although they are not necessarily, there are different standards all over, but there is definitely a correlation between profitability, success, sustainability, and better handling of risk for that matter. And so this holistic concept related to, leads to competitive advantages, which we should definitely look at, whether or not you are a for-profit or a not-for-profit, such as ICD initiatives, ESG initiatives we would like to establish, indeed are necessary for sustainability. And so in the context of it being mainstream in the business world, again, for-profit, not-for-profit, but in this case, for-profit in terms of materiality. Earlier, we mentioned about the increasing number of funds getting into ESG, 35 trillion. The numbers vary, of course, and the continuous growth. So definitely influences investor risk, returns, recommendations, and even policies for investments. It then moves on to transparency and showing how clients' money is invested. Hence, a part of your annual reports is really not purely numerical as it used to be in financial statements. ESG reports are part of annual reports, and that just goes to show the importance of it. Regulation, of course, is coming into play. I guarantee you the SEC is deep into trying to address how ESG or the whole sustainability initiative continues to develop and evolve as needed. Okay. This didn't really start at the turn of the century. I mean, surely there are many, I remember back in the 1980s where we watched Wall Street and greed is good was the catchphrase, and it was really a battle cry saying we are corporations and our purpose is to make money for our investors. And bottom line, it evolved into some successful but many failures. You've seen these stories before about the BP, the British Petroleum explosion, the biggest environmental disaster, over 54 billion in fines, and God knows how much billions it has cost in terms of nature and all it, and the effects of this huge spill. Without going too much, because I believe we are supposed to be until 12 o'clock, we'll be presenting other cases, not just the Volkswagen. These are older stories, but good things to put in perspective. The largest company, car company in the world, Volkswagen, has been guilty and had to pay 27 billion euros, for a truly almost fatal, possibly, but really a very grave offense into faking vehicle emission testing reports. In 2018, Cambridge Analytica really caused Facebook to go all the way to Congress, to the US Congress, and face very many data privacy issues. But definitely losing a lot of billions and billions in market value. And of course, this is, in this case, Cambridge Analytica is probably equally guilty, but it's Facebook who, the owner of this corporation, who probably needed to really address these governance issues that that seem to be coming more often. It seems like in many ways we've never learned, and there's something new coming up lately. Of course, there's the hacking, the Bangladesh bank. There's just so many issues to talk about. It's 12 o'clock, and I'll just probably ending with, let me see if my slide shows everything. And to show the importance of ESG, corporate reputation, risk reduction, opportunity management, and of course, corporate culture. We'll be breaking this down, talking them into bits and pieces, and try to just express the importance of ESG and how it is evolving. And so, if I may, that will just be the first part of the masterclass. The second part of the masterclass, which I eagerly would like to report on and hopefully be able to tease you with, is that it will be actual ESG and strategy initiatives with a couple of PLCs, publicly listed companies that we can look into and make a case study, which will hopefully serve as a guide. Knowledge is king, after all. In your develop your own interpretations and your own sustainability initiatives, along with your ESG reporting, and so on and so forth. Well, having said that, Pao, I believe I hope we're able to convince the participants to join us. Thank you to all the members, to the newly appointed members and the current board, of course, that we have in ICD. We just had our AGM. And to the members who have attended. To those who have not attended, you are hereby officially invited to join us in our next few sessions as well, and join us in ICD. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much, Sir Charlie. Again, the full session of Sir Charlie's masterclass topic is on December 9th. All right. I know and I feel that maybe a lot of you or some of you have already picked from the 6 topics presented or launched today, and it's a lot to choose from. But rest assured that this masterclass series, or courses rather, will be a great help to keep you abreast with the most latest issues and trends in the world of corporate governance. So again, we would like to thank our esteemed speakers. We would like to congratulate and thank you for a very great discussion and for the successful launching of the ICD Masterclass. We also thank everyone, to our dear participants who joined us today. We invite you to also join the individual session of our speakers, again starting on July 29th, and learn more from their topics as they deep dive into the core of corporate governance. The program or registration fee is 3,000 pesos per session. The complete package of the sessions is priced at 12,000 pesos. Know more about this event by visiting our website or by reading the event brochure that will be sent after the event. Just in case your company already needs them before the actual date of the sessions, we can arrange an exclusive session with you on your preferred date and time. Feel free to contact the ICD team so we can discuss your needs. We value your feedback, comments, and suggestions. So we encourage everyone to answer the survey for this online webinar. You may answer it through scanning the QR code shown on your screens, and we will also send the link via chat box. Also, stay connected with ICD. You may find us online by scanning the QR code shown on your screens. This will direct you to our website and social media accounts. We have also created an ICD Philippines Viber community group chat where you can stay connected and updated with our courses and services. We invite everyone to join just by scanning the QR code shown on your screens. All right, so before we proceed to our further announcements or other announcements, we would like to have a quick photo op with the speakers. So may I request the speakers to please turn on your cameras. Right, waiting for Sir Rex. Okay. All right. Okay, on a count of 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. All right, another shot. 1, 2, 3. All right, thank you. For our upcoming courses, this June or this this coming quarter, we invite you again with our first masterclass series, Managing Finances in the Digital Age, FinTech. The masterclass speaker is Ms. Imelda C. Shangsan. This will be again on July 29th from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. Next, we have Getting the Right Tool for ESG Compliance and Governance, Distinguished Corporate Governance Speaker Series. So this will be later at 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. So we still invite everyone to register in this event. Next, we have Navigating the Boardroom Corporate Governance Orientation Program on June 29th and 30th. We have the third batch or third round of our Professional Directors Program starting on July 7th. And we have the CGOP or Corporate Governance Orientation Program for GOCCs on July 5th to 6th. And lastly, we have the Technology Governance for Directors on August 4th and 5th. So again, we thank you everyone for joining us today in the Masterclass webinar teaser, and we hope to see you in our future webinars and courses. So thank you everyone, and have a great lunch. Thank you.